Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, we got texts, we got emails, we got so much information on the shooting on Sunday, which proves that Fergie and Forehead were lying beyond belief. But before we get to any of that, it is time to talk about the Rona again, my friends.
We are going to die.
We are going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die. Just not today.
Haven't had to play that liner in a while. That's been many, many a moon since we played that one. During COVID, the Ari Hoffman Show was known for making fun of Fauci, making fun of Inslee, making fun of the lockdowns, the mandates, and everything, and showing how absolutely ridiculous all of it was, how insane all of it was. So today, Dr. Anthony Fauci was in the hot seat regarding the response to COVID. He took the Fifth Amendment, pleaded the Fifth 111 times. 111 times. Because now that his egotistical, megalomaniacal diary is public about how excited he was to meet celebrities and do TV shows and be on the cover of InStyle magazine, that he was also saying he knew certain things worked, he knew certain things didn't work, and he was completely full of crap. But he enjoyed the power and control over all of us. While I was watching parts of the hearing today, I said, you know what, I wonder if Washington is inside the Fauci files. So, wouldn't you know, pulled him up, because don't forget, what was the first place that had the cases of COVID here in Washington? Where were the first fatalities in nursing homes here in Washington? During COVID, we got copies of the medical orders, the executive orders, which Jay Inslee signed, which sent COVID-positive patients into the nursing homes. That was the end of Inslee liking me, not that I think he ever did beforehand. That was the end of his press guy liking me, not that I think he ever did, because we got a hold of those through a public disclosure request, and they were buried in thousands of pages of documents. Governor Jay Inslee had 975 days of emergency powers. Tons of people lost their livelihoods. People turned to drugs. People got depressed. Kids missed major lifestyle events. Kids missed parts of school. The learning loss is insane. And you know whose idea it was? Anthony Fauci. I'm reading directly from what he wrote. Governor Inslee of Washington State called me, even though the VP was on his way to visit the governor, and asked me my opinion about mitigation, i.e., should they start it. Now, that means lockdowns, that means closing the schools, that means everything. Fauci said, I told him a definite yes. Inslee said he trusts me and nobody else in the administration. I also answered a number of questions from him and his staff. In other words, you remember that picture of Mike Pence on the tarmac at SeaTac Airport, where he was bringing all those supplies to Washington, all those medical supplies, and the elbow bump between him and Fauci, him and Inslee, you remember that? That means even as that was happening, even as they were on their way with help, Inslee was calling Fauci, say, I don't trust these guys. What are they bringing me? Inslee called Fauci directly before Mike Pence even touched down at SeaTac. Inslee asked whether Washington should begin all the lockdowns. And this is Fauci who said he never said we should do the school lockdowns. He never said we should close. That wasn't his idea. Fauci gave him an unequivocal, definitely yes. Definitely yes. This was Fauci. Everything you went through during COVID was Inslee listening to Fauci and Fauci calling the shots because he enjoyed the power. For those of you who may be new to the show, you may not know, I used to own a couple of pretty moderately successful businesses. One of them was an event rental company. And I loved doing the job. It also kept me in way better shape than I'm in now, hauling massive bounce houses and photo booths and all that kind of stuff around. It takes its toll. Lifting 250, 300 pounds every 20 minutes, yeah, you're going to be in great shape doing that. You really, really are. And I had the company, and I had to shut it down for 2 weeks because everybody was so freaked out. Nobody wanted rentals anymore. All festivals were canceled, and there was no bailout for us. There were no grants for us, especially because I'm a white guy, according to them. Even when they came out with all the grants for minorities, there were none for us. My business got destroyed. My business was absolutely destroyed. I was lucky because I was able to pivot into something else. I was able to pivot into media, which eventually led me to KVI. And I'm forever grateful that I found this job because it is my dream job. I don't want you to make you think I'd rather be lifting bounce houses right now. It's far more comfortable in an air-conditioned studio than doing that. But that was a business that one of my kids wanted to inherit one day. Who knows if he even was serious, but he was a kid and he thought bounce houses were fun and he wanted to run the business, and kids change their mind 50,000 times, but that's what they want. And they love telling their friends, hey, Dad's got this giant Star Wars bounce house and all that. And I like the work and I like the people, and I employed 50 people a summer, and those jobs are all gone. Destroyed by Inslee and Fauci. Destroyed. My family was not in the best financial straits after that because entire company gone. An entire company gone. And I had to figure out how to make a living, and I luckily was able to pivot into media. Other people were not so lucky. Other people were not so lucky. Senator Moreno was up on Capitol Hill today, and he was one of the people doing the hearing. This is Bernie Moreno. And he said something that really resonated with me and any of our listeners who went through something similar. He was talking to Fauci after Fauci was taking the fifth, pleading the fifth, pleading the fifth, pleading the fifth. And here's what Moreno said directly to him.
It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace.
He's my new spirit politician. You know, people got a spirit animal. He's my new spirit politician. He really, really is, because he did exactly what I did. He had to sell his companies, probably for similar reasons, and he pivoted over into politics to punish the person, hold accountable the person, and make sure it never happened again. I believe it was Todd Herman who said, former radio host around here in Seattle who still does a show out from the high mountains of free America, that he actually said the dumbest thing that Jay Inslee did was shutting down Ari Hoffman's businesses. Because then I dedicated my life to exposing every single thing Inslee did. And we have the Inslee impressions, and we have the jokes, and we have the emperor and the everything, but today I'm out of jokes. Today I'm out of jokes because people lost their livelihoods and left Washington. People lost their livelihoods and were never able to recover financially and went bankrupt. People lost their livelihoods and turned to drugs and alcohol to get them through, and we've never had such high overdose levels. We're not just talking about the people on the streets. Kids, depression, anxiety, learning loss, immeasurable. Absolutely immeasurable. They were something with my own kids, and I saw this after like a year of COVID, that this little fire was starting to go out in their eyes, and I was really worried about them because Zoom school doesn't cut it, and I was really getting worried about that. I'm so glad it's back in all of them, but this little fire in their eyes, little Hoff children. You think I'm loud? You should meet my children. They're just as loud, if not squeakier than me. But that little fire that made them so awesome was starting to go out, and I was concerned. I think about my friends who lost people they love. Some friends of ours, their mother believed Fauci. get the vax, believed Inslee, get the vax, you'll be protected. She went on a trip. She came back with COVID and died. She believed she was going to be fine because of the things Jay Inslee and crew and Fauci were saying. She died. Another friend of mine, his father was marked as a COVID case, even though he didn't die of COVID, because the hospital he was in wanted the money benefits for COVID. How many schools? A whole chunk of my community, my Jewish community here in Seattle, moved out during COVID, and we will likely never recover. Because if you are working in tech and can work remotely, why should you be here? With the riots and everything else that was going on in 2020, why would you want to be locked down? You want to go somewhere else. You want to get out of here and still be paid that high Seattle salary, and that's exactly what they did. My synagogue and so many others in my neighborhood are a fraction of what they were. This destroyed my community, destroyed my finances, almost destroyed my kids. I am in this job today because of those stupid decisions that they made. And don't get me wrong, I love what I do, but I made it my mission to make Jay Inslee's life a living hell after that. And I know I was, because his press guys told me so, in not so many words. How many other people weren't lucky enough to pivot into a new job? How many people were getting less than they were getting paid before? How many people turned to drugs? How many people turned to other things? We may never know the full damage that was done by Anthony Fauci because he wanted to be famous. And make no mistake about it, it was because he wanted to be famous. Do you know why he's taking the fifth on everything today? Do you know why? You're probably thinking to yourself, he's got a blanket pardon. Why does he need to take the fifth? Blanket pardon is only through the date it was signed. It may go back to 2014, which, by the way, is the date Fauci started funding all the research in Wuhan with your taxpayer dollars. Fauci doesn't have a pardon going forward of lying to Congress. If he says anything out of line, out of order that could be disproven, it's lying to Congress. So he had to take the fifth on everything. He brought a team of lawyers, How much money did he make during the pandemic that he can afford a team of lawyers behind him? A team of lawyers. And we want the answers, and he's not going to give them to us because he pleaded the fifth 111 times. 111 times. I know some of you right now are beyond furious hearing all this. I know some of you expected the fire and brimstone, the let's make fun of this. I'm not there yet. I am too mad. Is it fun watching Fauci get owned by all the senators? Absolutely. But it doesn't fix what happened. Doesn't fix the people that died. Doesn't fix the people that lost their livelihoods, lost their business, lost loved ones. Doesn't fix any of that. And we get no answers. No answers. Like simple ones, even like this.
Red folder on your table is a copy of Section 192 of Title II of the U.S. Code. Your counsel has been provided a copy as well. That section makes it a crime for a witness appearing under subpoena to refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the question under inquiry. Do you have that in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. It is true that you're appearing under direction of our subpoena to provide testimony on matters under consideration by the committee, including the origins of COVID-19, risky life sciences research, and your tenure as a federal government employee. Additionally, you've been provided a full and unconditional pardon dated January 19th, 2025, for any offenses against the United States which may have been committed or taken part from January 1st, 2014 to the date of the pardon for a 10-year period. arising from or in any manner related to your service as director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force or the White House COVID-19 response team, or as chief medical advisor to the president. Have you refused this pardon, or do you have any reason to believe this full and unconditional pardon, this grant of immunity, would somehow require you to plead the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Well, he's got a new problem right now. And for those of you who just want the answers, he's got a new problem right now. Is he obstructing a Senate investigation by refusing to testify? There are some legal questions here that need to be answered. If Fauci committed a new crime by not cooperating with a Senate investigation. This is how absurd it got. This is Senator Josh Hawley trying to get answers out of Fauci during all this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the Fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie you're wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one.
That was the day today. That was the day where they brought up everything from his diary and they brought up everything they have documents of, and we got no answers. Personally, I think Fauci should spend the rest of his remaining days in jail for the fraud that he put upon all of us. I'm not even at the point where I can find this funny yet. I'm really, really not, because reading that section about Washington, he's responsible for 970 days of emergency powers. He found a useful idiot in Jay Inslee and the Washington Democrats who went along with all that craziness. Jenny Durkin, Dow Constantine, all of them found useful idiots in all of them who didn't think to themselves, let's check the science. And before all of you go, well, he was an expert. He was a doctor. He knew best. Ron DeSantis realized something didn't smell right. Ron DeSantis, he did the lockdowns. Florida did the lockdowns. And then they realized this isn't working. This isn't making sense whatsoever. Not at all. He put together his own medical team that actually followed the science. And even with one of the most elderly populations in the United States, if you take Florida and stack it up against Washington or stack it up against California or you stack it up against any of these other blue states, not only do they have similar, if not less, death rates in Florida, but their economy is booming. People found jobs. People found livelihoods. Billions of dollars added to their tax base in Florida because people fled Washington and fled New York and fled California to get away from the tyranny. The fact that we fought the British for freedom over a 3% tax without representation. And people went along with these lockdowns for 2 years in Washington. And you remember being demonized if you didn't follow them? You remember what they said about you? I remember my social media getting censored because I was calling this stuff out. My Facebook just got restored a month ago from all that. I know many of you are listening right now. I know many of you, a lot of this is resonating with. If you have a particular story of how Jay Inslee and Anthony Fauci and the Democrats, the useful idiots, destroyed your livelihood, destroyed your businesses, or worse, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. We're going to open up the phone lines right now, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I don't think jail is enough for me with regard to Anthony Fauci. I don't know what is. Not calling for anybody to harm the guy. I don't know what is, but even if he was sentenced to jail for the rest of his life, I don't think I'd feel satisfied. I don't think the people who lost loved ones would feel satisfied. I don't think the people who lost businesses would feel satisfied. But the fact that people weren't thinking for themselves and went along with this insanity, they're the ones I blame the most. The first week was fun. Oh, get a vacation I wasn't counting on, spend more time with the family. Second week, and then after that, and then after that, and then after that, and then after that. The people who didn't wake up, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions for all of you. Really, really do. Because you demonized your fellow Washingtonians, you demonized your fellow Seattleites, you demonized your fellow Americans, you demonized your friends. Was it worth it? For following a guy that we knew was full of crap because he was contradicting himself nonstop. Nonstop contradicting himself. People still went along with it. And speaking of people just going with the flow and following along with things, we have new emails, new texts that have been revealed regarding the shooting on Sunday night. And they're all pointing in one direction of culpability. Tell you where when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 6 o'clock today is the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded. That's right, an extra hour of the show. Stuff you may have missed from 6 to 7 p.m. every single weekday, brought to you by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Ammo. I mean, the fact that so many of you are reaching out to me right now telling me your COVID stories, I think I have to do an entire segment on this. I really, really do. Not right now, because I have to read all these during the break, but so many of you are reaching out. Got fired, lost my job, lost this, lost that, the lives. The text line is absolutely blowing up. Absolutely blowing up. We're going to tell your stories. But first, I want to tell you what's going on, the latest with the shooting update with regard to who's responsible for this mess. Now, first of all, let's go through the timeline for a second. We know that 5 hours went by on Sunday night after the shooting at Bite of Seattle. 5 hours before there was a press conference of any way, shape, and form. And the question is, why did so much time go by when you had a suspect, if not two suspects, on the loose, and you didn't know where they were? So I did a public disclosure request for the first police report. Another one is going to be dropping at about 4:35 o'clock because they're having another court hearing today with regard to the suspect they have in custody. So we'll find out more then. But for now, I'm just going to read you what we have here. This is from the police report from SPD. On July 26, 2026, at approximately 1800 hours, that's 6 o'clock, the Bite of Seattle event was taking place at Seattle Center, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Sergeant Lindicki was one of the first many police officers in Seattle Center providing security. He was standing near the northwest corner of the listed location, heard gunshots coming from the west, along with an east-west walkway lined with vendor booths. He and other officers immediately moved in that direction. The sergeant saw a black male, later identified as redacted. So, we've got descriptions of suspects, do we now? We have descriptions of suspects. We still haven't been given one. This was filed Monday morning, which means they had the information on Sunday night. They had this information in time for the press conference, and they didn't tell us the description of the perps or anything. Standing on the north side of the walkway, less than 100 feet from his position, holding a handgun and firing southbound into the crowd. The sergeant took X into custody, located a handgun on his person. X is under 18, not allowed to possess a firearm. Oh, we knew that at the time, too, that he was a minor? They didn't tell us that. At the time he was taken into custody, an associate of his, who was detained at the same time, died of a gunshot wound. So you knew Sunday night another gangbanger was one of the victims, and you didn't tell us. You didn't tell us that for 24 hours. You didn't tell us that. On the south side of the walkway, the direction X had been firing his handgun, officers located 3 additional gunshot victims. One victim had been pushing a bicycle directly south of the area, had seen the shooting. Another one was to the west. Finally, the 4th victim was a 2-year-old child who had been with his mother and was near X. In addition, 2 other victims, one who died at the scene, another who died at the hospital, were located southeast of the position. Victim identifications are known to law enforcement. Investigators located fired shell casings to the east and the north, and the area they saw X firing his gun. At the writing of this, SPD, CSI detectives are still processing the scene. Based on the evidence at the scene, investigators believe X and one of the deceased engaged in a gunfight with at least one other unknown suspect. They knew this right away, and for 5 hours, they didn't tell us there was still a gunman on the loose. Still a gunman on the loose. Didn't tell us that for 5 hours. Didn't tell the media. Didn't tell anybody else. Now, why did it take so long to have a press conference? Our friends over at the Center Square did a public disclosure request and got one single solitary text out of Bob Ferguson's office. Kevin, you got to back me up on this because this smells to high heaven. And here's what it is. I file public disclosure requests for Bob Ferguson's office all the time. It takes months, if not years, for them to come back. And they always come back redacted, 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 redacted. To get a public disclosure back with one text a day later, that does not happen. And before you think it's me, I went over to our friends in news. I went over to Jeff and I go, you ever hear back from the governor this quickly? He goes, never. It's not just a me thing. If you get a text back in one day where the governor's going, yeah, let's do a press conference, Mayor Katie. Let's do it. And then there's no presser. What do you think they're trying to do? Think they're trying to blame somebody? That's what it sounds like to me, right? That's what it sounds like to me. And then there's this. I sent a request for comment for the governor's schedule the day it happened. I heard back from them the next day. Governor Bob Ferguson's office has never responded to a request from me in my entire time being a radio host. Ever, ever, ever. Not when he was attorney general, not when he's governor. And now we're getting this? And then today, I started filing public disclosure requests for everything. I think I filed 15 in 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. 15 in 5 minutes for all this stuff. I want everything. Randomly, out of nowhere, Bob Ferguson's press person says, "Hi, Ari." Oh, how is that? This wasn't sent to the whole press. It was sent to me. We continue to get some questions about the timeline. I know you were interested after I filed a public disclosure request for all your emails and all your texts and all your everything else. Quick, throw Katie Wilson under the bus. Quick, quick, quick. In an emergency, the lead law enforcement agency is responsible for sharing information with the public. Oh, let's blame SPD. I want to be very clear. Our office had no involvement in what was being communicated to the public by the Seattle Police Department and assumed that timely communications were happening. Really? Because they weren't happening on social media and you weren't seeing press conferences. Why would you be assuming that? Also, you have a text, which is literally saying, yeah, I could be there by 9 for your press conference. The way it's supposed to happen is a police officer comes out and says, okay, members of the media, okay, everybody else, we know this and this. A lot of stuff is unconfirmed. We'll be back in an hour. We'll be back in 2 hours. Then they have another one. Okay, we know this and this. This isn't confirmed. We don't know this. We'll be back. And then they have the big press conference with all the elected officials. Then they have it. And yet, they're giving me a whole timeline of where he was. You know what I replied to them with this? My question, which hasn't been answered, by the way. I replied to them, thanks so much. Why wasn't this included in the original timeline you sent me? Why is this all being sent now? And why is it being sent when I didn't ask for it? And why is it being sent right after I filed a public disclosure request for all your information? These offices talk to each other because you have to start preserving documents when you get a public disclosure request. Bob Ferguson is trying to throw Katie Wilson under the bus. She deserves it. Katie Wilson is trying to throw Sean Barnes under the bus. He deserves it because they're all incompetent. Katie Wilson's office, SPD said they were waiting on dignitaries? Dignitaries to have their press conference? I've never heard them use that word before in their life. Odds are that came from Katie Wilson's office. And don't forget, Bruce Harrell, when he was mayor, consolidated all communications into the mayor's office from SPD. That's probably still a holdover for that in Katie Wilson's office. So Bob Ferguson doesn't want to get tagged with this. Pramila Jayapal sent out a similar statement. Neither one of them want to get tagged with this, so they put it on Katie Wilson, who is an incompetent buffoon. But Bob Ferguson should have said, you're not doing this presser, I'm doing the presser. Here's the briefing. Here's what we know. Incompetence from top to bottom. And now they're all trying to turn on each other so that none of them get the blame. That's not leadership. That's passing the buck. None of these people are actual leaders. They're just elected officials. Up next, my friends, those texts I told you about that we've been getting in, your stories about what's happened since COVID to you guys. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you want to take a look at my voter's guide so you know who to vote out of office, who are the ones that were actually supporting this insanity in the Washington State Legislature, I might have to update my voter's guide and say, yeah, this person supported the lockdowns. This person supported the lockdowns. This person voted Jay Inslee to have emergency powers for 975 days. I might actually have to do that. My voter's guide is up at KVI.com. That's KVI.com. This one here from Robin Lakewood. Did a single Democrat ask a question of Fauci or just kiss his you-know-what? John Fetterman wore a suit today. John Fetterman don't wear suits. Why do you wear a suit today? What did he say to Fauci? He's the only Democrat, the only one who didn't defend Fauci. He's the only one.
It's not about much more your regrets, but I have one. And that is early on that there was the theory that the virus could have emerged from the lab. And early on, that became like a right-wing kinds of theory. And I thought it seemed to make sense. Now, there was a really advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. So, but that became a very partisan thing. And now it seems now it's more and more emerging theory that that would have come from the lab. Now, I think that the next time our nation's facing something like this, we are not become, as I might have been, blinded by the partisan idea that maybe the truth might come from a side that's different than you are. But I think we should really be willing to pursue truth, no matter where that may have emerged, for all of that.
By the way, the guy with the brain injury saying, can we just follow the science and find the truth? That is the most normal take on all of this. And if we had done that from the beginning, maybe things would have gone so bad. All John Fetterman is saying, and he's the only Democrat that didn't stand up for Fauci, all he is saying is, can't we just investigate it? No, how dare you? You say China virus, you say Wuhan, you say any of that stuff. You are a racist. You are a bigot. Remember all that? Insane. Absolutely insane. From Carol, Ari, my neighbor was a retired man, was having cancer treatment when COVID hit. His treatment was suspended so the hospital could help with COVID, and he died soon after. You remember all that insanity? Do you remember this? Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, so many of you here. Here, this one. A dear friend, 60 years old, was in hospice and died alone with minimal care because of that man. Not even his immediate family was allowed to see him. Remember, nobody at funerals, but those pallbearers, but the guys digging the grave. They can dig shoulder to shoulder in that little pit. Yeah. You can't walk within 6 feet. How big is a grave, by the way? Oh, right. As you're digging that thing out. Nick from the 206. My grandfather died 3 days short of his 90th birthday during COVID while hospitalized for a stroke. His death was marked by the hospital as COVID-19. Yes, we've heard these stories. It's like the one I said. This one here. Ari, I'll never forget the young couple who operated an RV park in Leavenworth. They were forced to sell their business they owned for years. I'll never forget the face of the wife when she told me how distressed she became because she couldn't go to church, practice her faith. Her social and spiritual network was cut off from society. They sold their business, moved to South Carolina. But I'll never forget her face or how distressed she was. Hi, Ari. My name is Mike. My partners and I owned a restaurant that was once iconic restaurant called Johnny's Dock in Tacoma. While pot shops and liquor stores were open, our waterfront restaurant was ruined. $60K in steaks and seafood thrown away. Couldn't even go to church to pray. This is what it was. These are the stories. We've all heard them. And will Fauci even ever be held accountable for it? Well, here's what Rand Paul said at the end of the hearing today.
Let's be clear today, what we've seen. I really did want to hear from Dr. Fauci. I wanted to hear perhaps an apology, perhaps some semblance of being sorry for what happened or that judgment errors were made. We didn't hear any of that. But he was subpoenaed here to testify, refused to answer any questions, even after being directed by the chair and being advised of the law requiring him to do so. He has cited a privilege that is unsupported because of his blanket pardon and because he waived the privilege by testifying at the start. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to comply with the law, limited to the period of your pardon. At any point between January 1st, 2014 and January 19th, 2025, did you destroy any federal record or tell anyone else to?
Under the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given that you have a unlimited presidential pardon, what is your specific objection that you are making?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
My question was limited to the period of your pardon only. I find your objection unsupported and direct you to answer the question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Because you refuse to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt.
Now, if they could throw Steve Bannon in jail for that kind of stuff, I wonder if they can throw Fauci in jail. I'm no fan of Steve Bannon, but the guy shouldn't have been thrown in jail if Hunter Biden wasn't thrown in jail for ignoring a congressional subpoena. Question is there a legal standing to actually throw him in jail for using his Fifth Amendment right, even with the pardon? We're going to have to talk to some lawyers about this, make some phone calls, and find out the answers, because this is an open question in legalese. But we'll try our best to get the answers for you, like the answers to why schools are giving out dolls with removable genitals. I kid you not. This is the kind of stuff parents found out during COVID when they're sitting around the kitchen table with their kids who are locked out of schools and unable to do homework. When we come back, why are these things being given out in Washington? Somebody want to explain to me the educational value of this and why our taxpayer money should be spent on it? Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. How many investigations are there into Washington schools based on the woke insanity? Well, now there's a new one, and if you have kids in the car, you might want to earmuff it for a second here. Transgender dolls with removable genitalia is going to be hitting classrooms. In Minnesota, at least, it's going to be paid for by the state taxpayers. Washington hears this and goes, yeah, let's get those in our classrooms. First of their kind dolls will be available to children in some Minnesota classrooms as kids as young as 4 years old, according to a report from the New York Post. Are we talking like Mr. Potato Head? Does it work like that, Mr. Potato Head? Or are we talking like Barbie and Ken where they're just missing stuff? Oh, no. It's to show you can swap these things. Taxpayer-funded paper dolls will have gender-neutral names such as Sam, Rory, Avery, and Parker. The paper dolls also come with 100 interchangeable pieces of clothing. How come Mattel's not making these, huh? If there was profit in it, don't you think Mattel would be doing it? The goal of paper trans dolls for kids is to learn the different options that exist for who they can be, said a therapist at the University of Minnesota Medical Center. The project was originally funded by the Tim Walz administration. Over the last 6 years, the Medical School's Institute for Sexual and Gender Health Research included offering $20 to $60 to trans and gender diverse, as well as parents to use the dolls and talk about gender and bodies. The promise of the trans dolls to make gender fun, and according to the website of a company that took the research idea and ran with it as a commercial venture, the dolls are built to help children tell their stories and see themselves represented. So basically, you're just going along with mental health problems? That's what we're doing here? The dolls are meant for professionals who support trans and gender diverse children in clinical and educational settings. None of this is scientific. None of this at all. Even if you have the surgery, it doesn't change your DNA. This is for therapists, teachers, and school counselors. This isn't for like, where did he touch you? Show me on the doll. That's not what it's for, guys. The website does not disclose the cost of the dolls. University of Minnesota's Medical School has received $15 million from the state each year for funding, according to the Post Millennial, and funds have been earmarked as helping to increase the medical school's research capacity and ensure its national prominence. You got your national prominence, all right, my friends. Therapists from the university's medical school said that they use the dolls to have children talk about their genitalia. We're able to explore and brainstorm not just what our bodies are able to do now, but what we want our bodies to be able to do and look like in the future, said Assistant Professor Elizabeth Panetta. You know, I want wings. I want to fly. Can somebody give me wings? I want to be like that guy Angel in the X-Men. No, better yet, I want the claws. I want adamantium. I want a full adamantium metal coating over my body with the skeleton and all that. I want Wade Wilson to be able to dig me up and use my body to kill a whole bunch of time enforcement guys. That's what I want. I want all that to happen. It's not going to make me be able to fly. It's not going to. If I have claws that come out of my hands, I'm going to need some serious surgery, not just to get them in, but to put them back in again. That's horrible. Did you see Logan? You see how that dude dies? It's not great. Sorry. 10-year-old spoiler alert. It's out there. It doesn't change who you are as opposed to actually dealing with this stuff. We are affirming it. We are emboldening it, which is insane. Absolutely insane. And now the Department of Education is opening investigation into Minnesota's plans to do this. On Wednesday, the federal department announced the investigation, saying it is examining whether the Minnesota Department of Education is complying with the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. The investigation follows a complaint filed with the department's Student Privacy Policy Office by Defending Education. In the complaint, parents allege that they were neither notified nor given the opportunity to opt their children out of the activity. It is crazy. Quote, "We are deeply grateful the Education Department is taking immediate action to protect Minnesota students from being subject to UMN's appalling My Gender Dolls," said Defending Education founder and president Nicole Neely in a statement. "It is deeply perverse, biologically false, to impress upon children that genitalia can be swapped out like Mr. Potato Head parts with no lasting damage. And for the state to wrest control of these conversations from parents while using their tax dollars to do so, no less, is truly an insult to injury." This is literally the kind of stuff they are doing with kids in schools. Are we going to find out next it's happening in Washington? Oh, do you remember a couple months ago during Pride Month? Brandy Cruz got a hold of these pictures from one school which had a pride display where they had the vials of testosterone being displayed there. Department of Education is investigating that as well because that's a controlled substance. That is a controlled substance. You can't just put it in your diorama that you bring to school for a display. So now the Department of Education is looking into that as well. Don't forget, there's currently a Pierce County Sheriff's investigation as well as to how those vials ended up in a display when they are a controlled substance. I thought pride was being proud about who you are, how God made you. This is what I am. This is who I want to be. And yet but I need the medication to do it, and I need you to change who I am because I'm not proud of who I am. It's completely contradictory to the entire pride ideal. Completely contradictory to what we were sold was the whole pride and rainbow stuff for years and years and years. Instead of helping kids who have serious psychological issues, they are affirming it. They are making things worse. And as a result, kids are suffering. This isn't going to help anybody out. It is only going to make things worse. Up next, my friends, Storm don't have a lot of people going to their games, and they're really doing badly this season. They decided to make things worse. We'll tell you what they did to some teenage girls when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves. Seattle Police Officers Guild joins us for the stories of the hero police officers who stopped that shooting from being a lot worse. Patty Murray goes to bat for an illegal alien, claiming he's got no crimes and no record. Yeah, we found his crime and his record. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right. Today, we are giving away your chance of a trip to the Grand Canyon in Arizona and your choice of $3,000 of cold, hard cash. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Do not text your name. Do not text your address. Do not text your phone number. Do not text, Ari, why are you wearing a button-down shirt today? It's the middle of the summer. Why are you doing that? I'm watching on the live stream on Facebook and X and Rumble and YouTube, and you're wearing a button-down shirt. Why are you doing that today? Don't do that. Just the word to the number I give you. Today's word is raft. As in, if you choose to go down the river of the Grand Canyon, you might need a raft. As in that movie, A River Runs Through It. Guess what that used? A raft to go down a river. You remember all this? Text the word raft, R-A-F-T, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. All right, Kevin didn't like the last one. The prison they used to hold all the people in the Marvel Universe, called the raft, R-A-F-T. Text it to 206-421-5757.
You said A River Runs Through It, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Robert Redford was the one who did the voiceover in that, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember. I saw that movie once years ago.
I don't think there's too much rafting in it.
Am I thinking of River Wild?
That's what I'm
you're thinking
of.
A River
Different
Wild.
river movie.
Different river, a River Wild. I'm like, did I get that wrong? Was it a canoe? I'm like, I remember a raft.
River Runs Through It also had, what's his name from Fight Club?
Brad Pitt?
Yeah, Brad Pitt. If I remember correctly, it was about fly fishing.
River Wild. River Wild.
That's
right.
a Kevin
River
Bacon
Runs
joint.
Through It had the canoe. That's what it was. Okay.
River Wild's a Kevin Bacon joint.
That's right.
Meryl Streep.
That's right. Meryl Streep fighting with Kevin Bacon. Thank you for the correction there, Kevin. See, we will do corrections on air. We will make sure to do that. Last night, after the show, I went on over to Climate Pledge Arena. The Fever was in town, and the Fever is playing the Storm. Now, the Storm has been losing a lot this year, and the Fever has been winning a lot this year. And we know that Sophie Cunningham has become the new it girl of the WNBA. Why? Because she said, I know, shocking for a women's basketball, for somebody who's promoting women's sports, that women's sports are for women, that girls' sports are for girls. And she keeps saying it over and over again. And the left hates this. They absolutely hate this. How dare you, right? So mad about this. So our friend Brandy Cruz and a few others organized a rally over at Climate Pledge Arena yesterday. So I walked on over after the show, maybe a little bit before the end of the show. Walked on over there yesterday, and just to support the girls. And there were a couple dozen people. It wasn't that big a rally. It's 5 o'clock on a work day, okay, in downtown Seattle. So, you know what? A few dozen people showing up on a work day at downtown Seattle, that's a nice thing. That's a really, really nice thing. And just showing up to support Sophie Cunningham, to support girls' sports. One person there had a giant Sophie Cunningham poster. Taller than me, because I think Sophie Cunningham's taller than me, too. I mean, look, I'm short, so I understand these things. But giant Sophie Cunningham poster right there. You can take a picture with Sophie Cunningham. And it was just, support women's sports. That's all it was. Very basic, very simple. Teenage girls wearing T-shirts from XXXY Apparel, which are the This Is for Boys, This Is for Girls by our friend Jennifer Say. Very simple. So I'm at this thing. And I look around and I said, why are so many people in the media calling it an anti-trans rally? There was nothing about that on any poster that I saw. None whatsoever. So this, of course, draws the counter-protesters. There were 3 of them, maybe 4. there was one who's not allowed to call this show anymore That one was there with his big signs that nobody knew what he was doing. And okay, this, do you have a job, man? Whatever. Then there was one, this was my personal favorite, this one. They had these signs like, you know, keep hate out of what, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? No hate in Washington State, right? From the hate group that hates anybody who's different from them. So they have these signs, no hate in Washington State. My favorite, and I put a picture of this over on social media. I should have taken a video. It's a woman, I think, a girl. I don't know. I don't want to know how they identify. Walks out over the crowd because of Climate Pledge Arena. The rally was going on down below the steps. And these people were up on the platform above the steps. And she comes on over, and she's holding her signs. No hate in Washington State, but one little problem with those signs. They were facing the wrong direction. So she's showing the crowd the backs of these placards that are completely blank, and she's standing there. Look at me. Look at me. Look at what I am showing all of you. Look at me. I'm like Moses coming down from the mountain, showing us the blank signs. And, of course, all of us pull out the cameras, which only emboldens her more, which, look at me, look at me. And we're all laughing because that's the caliber of protester it drew yesterday. Yeah, I wanted to fight, but you know what? This is important because it puts the emphasis on the girls. Oh, no, it doesn't. ESPN. A crowd of a few dozen gathered outside Climate Pledge Arena to support Sophie Cunningham and promote statewide initiative 638 and 00011, which would bar transgender students from participating in girls' athletics at Washington schools. No, it would keep biological men out of girls' sports. By the way, the WNBA is the most anti-trans sport there is. Do you see any boys competing in the WNBA? You see any biological men competing in the WNBA? They don't let them compete, but they're all busy yelling and screaming about trans. Stop it. Just stop it. Just stop it. Cunningham voiced support for barring transgender girls and that's not what she did. She said girls' sports are for girls. Isn't ESPN run by Disney? Okay. So what happens? The media, the sports media, is running with this narrative. It's an anti-trans rally, anti-trans rally. They're manufacturing this out of nothing, absolutely out of nothing. In fact, the Seattle Storm themselves put up a picture, and I don't even know what this girl's name is. Let's be real. None of us know the names of anybody who plays on the Seattle Storm. We just don't. And you know how they post when you show up to a game what you're wearing? So this player shows up with a shirt that says, trans rights are human rights. So brave. So brave. So brave, so bold for the Storm to put that up on social media. So the sports media, the women's sports media, which is very, very small in numbers. The women's sports media is opposed to standing up for teenage girls and opposed to standing up for women's sports. They went hunting for a controversy. Statement from Seattle Storm regarding Love is Truth anti-trans fan rally, according to someone named Christina with a KH. I don't know who you are, crazy lady. Hang on, which outlet do you write for? Or are you just someone? Award-winning women's basketball insider. Sure, okay. It says, we are aware of the rally and tracking it closely with our partners at Climate Pledge Arena. The Storm is committed to providing a safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment for all guests. Well, guess what? You didn't. You didn't. Because we'll tell you what happened to those girls when they went inside. We will tell you what happened. Tracking it. Yes, tracking a bunch of teenagers and their parents. They're such a threat to the Storm. So what happened was Brandy arranged for these girls to have courtside seats so they could wear their XXXY and hold up posters supporting Sophie Cunningham. Now, Brandy's going to be joining us later in the show today, so you can hear the story directly from her. But while they were inside the stadium, these teenage girls are getting yelled at. These teenage girls are being heckled. And then this one woman walks over to yell at the girls. And the person who did it has been identified as one of the Storm's ownership, minority owner Celeste Keaton. She went up to these two girls and yelled at them for supporting Sophie Cunningham. Now, from a business perspective, dumb move. Your stadium is sold out because of Sophie Cunningham. Your stadium is sold out, and you went up to people who paid $1,300 for those seats. You don't know who got them there. $1,300 those seats cost. You went up to them and yelled at them for supporting your sport when you're trying to get more people in the building? My daughter has been asking for WNBA gear for Sophie Cunningham, not for anything else. She's not even a big basketball fan, but she's been asking for it. I don't even think I want to spend the money on that anymore. I'm so glad I didn't buy a ticket inside because then I'd be supporting the Storm. I don't want to give that team any money whatsoever. The minority owner of the team walks up and yells at teenage girls for defending girls' sports, and this woman owns a women's basketball team with no men on it, might I add. None whatsoever. She goes up and yells at these girls. That's not the only thing that happened. There is some other reporter named Roberta who's got a pride flag in her bio. It says Brazilian-American WBB reporter who apparently is a writer at Forbes. At Forbes. Okay. So she decides to cause a little problem. And she goes into the press room and starts using their terminology to ask questions after the games.
Coach, there was an anti-trans rally before the game inspired by a WNBA player. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community and in your workplace, what was your reaction knowing that this was happening right outside of your door?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Seattle and this organization and Climate Pledge, like, we always want to be an area where people feel welcome coming into this building. I think we've always done a really good job with that. So I know our organization was, you know, working closely with Climate Pledge and with security to just make sure that, you know, everybody feels safe and included and welcome when they walk in this door. And from what I understand, that was successful.
Not the teenage girls. Yeah. Not the teenage girls. You have a women's basketball team, and you're alienating teenage girls. What did I do when I was a teenager? I went to Mets games. I looked up to baseball players. You want teenage girls as fans. Now, this woman, or however they identify, Roberta, with the pride flag, I DM'd this person. And I said, request for comment. What was anti-trans about these rallies? I was there. What was anti-trans about these rallies? Hey, it's been almost 24 hours, no response. Go figure. Also, I noticed they closed comments on all their posts because they don't want to be challenged on any of it. Because that wasn't bad enough. They went to Sophie Cunningham's coach and did the same thing.
Coach, there was a rally before the game, an anti-trans rally before the game, inspired by Sophie Cunningham. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, how did you receive her comments and the way it ignited the right wing and anti-trans supporters? And for the players, have you had conversations in the locker room about it?
I'll jump in on that. We do have an organizational statement. I'll read. So neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers. Our only goal as a team, whether at home or away, is to win basketball games and make Fever fans for life, and we're united on that mission. Do we have any more basketball questions?
Okay, so this person is again trying to call anti-trans. I was at the rally. What was anti-trans about it? Well, I do love this part. The Fever beat the Storm. And they are the first team in WNBA history to score over 100 points in 4 straight games. Meanwhile, how many has the Storm dropped? What, is that 6 in a row? 7 in a row? Yeah, I am thrilled about that, by the way. Absolutely thrilled about it. So your team, your owner, are trying to alienate fans, are labeling them, are calling them names, and you expect people to go to your games? I did think about for 5 seconds yesterday. I did go and check the prices for the game. I checked it the night before. So it was about $50 for a nosebleed seat when I was looking at them, and I'm like, that's a lot of money to sit and not be able to see anything because I want to be down in the action if I'm going to be there. And also I want to see what the teenagers are doing with the signs and how Sophie Cunningham's reacting to it. How's the WNBA players? Apparently the Storm players were being mean to these girls also. Being mean to the fans. You are desperate to get into the stadium. That's not even a good business decision, if nothing else. There was a guy, Jonathan Cho was there. There was a guy that we were walking past. I was giving him a ride home. And there's a guy selling illegal merch out on the street. There's a non-licensed vendor, I assume, and he's got a whole tent full of stuff. He had all these jerseys. He had Sonics, Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark. No Storm jerseys. Nobody wants the Storm jerseys. They came to the game for Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. And you're now trying to chase them out of your stadium. And the owner is part of it, and the team is part of it. Well, now the owner is apparently releasing an apology because you realize what you did, right? You are now telling people we don't support girls' sports and we're a girls' basketball team. According to the Seattle Times, Seattle Storm's ownership group issued an apology Wednesday after minority owner Celeste Keaton confronted two teenaged fans who supported outspoken WNBA star Sophie Cunningham during an emotionally charged loss to the Indiana Fever on Tuesday night at Climate Pledge Arena. So, they said here, we are aware that one of our co-owners made comments to two fans in attendance at last night's game, said majority owner Ginny Gilder in a statement released by a team, because she's like, this idiot is going to screw up people coming to our games. This person is going to make it so we don't buy merch anymore. We apologize this happened. Everyone who attends a Storm game deserves to feel welcome. And we remain committed to creating an inclusive environment where every fan is treated with respect. Okay. You going to apologize for your team too? Are you going to have your team apologize for their behavior, yelling at these girls? Are you going to do that? Otherwise, I want nothing to do with your team. Nothing at all to do with your team. You almost had me. This is what happens when I ignore my gut. I always said I don't want to be part of this WNBA. I don't want to give them any money or anything. It's just a loss for the NBA, and I'm kind of done with basketball these days. I was whatever. And then I'm like, you know what? Maybe we'll go to the game and support Sophie Cunningham. Maybe. I don't want to give money to any of this anymore. This is who you are alienating. You are at the cusp of getting more people in, and now you're alienating them. Brandy's going to be joining us at 5:30 today to give us more details on exactly what happened because she was in the stadium with these girls. So make sure you're listening when Brandy's on the show later today. We go to the KVI studio line. Take a call from my good friend Alma. Alma, how you doing, my darling?
Oh, I'm 100. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You're 100 years old or you're 100%? I know it's not right to ask women their age, right?
I got 80. I got 20 more years to go.
Alma, I hope you have more than 20 years. I hope you have 30 years. I hope you have 40 years. I don't want to put a limit on that. I want you always calling my show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm kind of sad. My granddaughter, she's a Storm fan. She works very hard on her job, save her money, go to the game, and you say I want them to lose. Because of some, let me be fair, I really don't know what happened. I just started listening, but when you said that, it just got a nerve.
Well, so Alma, you have to hear the whole story, okay? One of the owners of the team, walked over to two teenage girls who had courtside seats and yelled at them for supporting Sophie Cunningham in women's sports.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That wasn't fair.
Yeah. See, Alma, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. Alma, I'll tell you what, okay? I'll tell you what, since I know you just came into the show, can you listen at 5:30 today? 5:30 today, okay? Yeah. And after that interview with Brandy, and you hear exactly what happened, I want you to call back and tell me what you think about that after the interview, okay?
Okay, that's fair. I'll do it.
All right, fantastic.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Alma. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's going on?
We have some breaking news for you.
What's the news, Joe?
The Seattle Storm won a PDC complaint. And you can probably guess who gave them the victory.
Wait a second.
For all their stunts.
What? Wait a second. I'm not understanding. They filed a PDC complaint?
I did.
For what, Joe?
Because the Seattle Storm only gave an in-kind contribution to No Hate in Washington State and didn't report it.
They didn't report it. So that's an in-kind campaign contribution, and you ding them for it? So the Seattle Storm got dinged for that? Is that what I'm saying?
There will be an investigation into it.
There will be an investigation into it. So I don't understand, Joe. If you want there to be an investigation into the Storm, why are you so mad and want an investigation to Let's Go Washington, who's fighting their shenanigans?
Because Let's Go Washington is also conducting shenanigans.
What shenanigans, Joe? Joe, what shenanigans? This case was settled by the Washington State Supreme Court when they tried to go after KVI for media people who believe in something, Joe.
You're mixing up cases. My case is more about sponsor ID with Let's Go Washington.
I got a question. So you're mad that they're working with Brandy Cruz. And what happens there is Brandy Cruz says, hey, this is sponsored by this person. This is sponsored by this person. This is my personal opinion, which is exactly what was going on with KVI, which was decided by the Washington State Legislature. So, Joe, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth here.
Ari, you are confusing cases.
I am not confusing cases. You sent me the paperwork, Joe. So while I'm happy you filed one, the other one you're costing a lot of people a lot of money, which they need to be spending on protecting girls' sports, which they need to be spending on repealing the income tax, which they need to be spending on protecting parents' rights, because now they have to respond to a BS PDC complaint. Appreciate the call, Joe. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, Senator Patty Murray is advocating for an illegal alien. An illegal alien saying he has no criminal history. We spoke to ICE. We know what his history is, and we'll give it to you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. We promised you we would bring you details after the hearing in court today about the Bite of Seattle shooter. Got some breaking news for you right now, my friends.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
Joining us now in studio from our sister station, Northwest News Radio, one of their incredible, amazing, impeccably accurate anchors is our friend Scott Carty. Scott, what's going on, man?
Well, Ari, we have a lot of information coming through this afternoon. One item is that bullets recovered from the bodies of 56-year-old Ashley Whitehead and 44-year-old Carlos Sanchez Villalba do not appear to have been shot from the ghost gun of the 15-year-old arrested at the scene Sunday. That's according to the court documents filed today. Police do say the teen was seen firing that gun into the crowd, but it's unclear if he hit anyone, if he caused any injuries, or if his bullets struck 19-year-old Junior C. Nico Simo, also considered a suspect. Also, the documents reveal that the shell casings from the scene, you're gonna like this one, indicated there were 4 weapons fired. Police have recovered 3 weapons. And as Chief Sean Barnes told us yesterday, they believe only 2 of them were fired, the ghost gun and a Glock 45 with an automatic switch and an extended magazine. So if that leaves 2 other weapons fired, I'm here asking the question, does that mean one outstanding suspect was shooting 2 guns, double barreling, or was someone else also involved? Are there now more suspects involved? As expected, this afternoon, the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office has filed charges against a 15-year-old male detained Sunday. Because of his age, it's now up to a judge to decide if he should be charged as an adult. The cutoff for that is at 15. If he were 16 or 17, a lot easier. That hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. So, being under 18, not allowed to possess a gun, he's been charged with unlawful possession of a firearm in the 2nd degree. He's also charged with assault in the 1st degree with a firearm enhancement, indicating that perhaps he hit someone. If you're wondering why he isn't charged with murder following the deaths of the 3 people, it's because that investigation is ongoing. Those details that we shared with you about his bullets from that gun not being in the bodies of the 2 innocent bystanders. So that's still a case that could be referred for prosecution. There are a lot of questions coming from this.
So the first question I have is yesterday's press conference. They said there might be a second outstanding suspect. There might be another person at large.
There might be a 3rd suspect. They have the one in custody. They have the one deceased. So that would have been a 3rd. But Chief Sean Barnes said that also we're not saying that there's only one other suspect.
That's what I'm saying.
He did indicate that there could possibly be more.
So there could possibly be 2. But what you're saying is that now there are firearms missing, which is where those bullets came from. They're not at the scene. We know they closed the scene immediately afterwards, unless somebody picked it up and ran away with it as they were fleeing the scene, which seems unlikely. It seems more likely that a suspect took it with them. Is that what they're saying?
Well, the Glock that was recovered wasn't recovered until Monday morning when vendors were starting to pack up.
Sure.
Okay. So what it's indicating is that there were 2 weapons fired, the Glock and the ghost gun, but they're now saying that the shell casings indicate that there were 4 weapons fired, which leaves 2 weapons. This is a math problem. It leaves 2 weapons to be accounted for.
Right. So this is the thing. I actually had the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild in here. We taped an interview, which is actually going to be in our next segment. And I asked him specifically, did the police open fire? I asked him specifically that. There's no indication that, but you want to cover your bases when you have something like this because they took, these guys are taken down.
Yeah, that's a valid question.
And he said there is no indication that any police officer opened fire. So that means that these weapons are most likely suspects' weapons that are there.
That logic tracks. They did say at one point in one of the press conferences, I don't remember which one it was, but that no police weapons were discharged.
Yeah. So it looks like more of this is a suspect thing. Okay. Now, Seattle Center. It's still open to the public. What else do we know about this case that happened, the hearing that happened today?
Well, this was referred to the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, so they then in turn filed charges. They had a 72-hour window, which would have taken them up until 4:30 this afternoon, so they did it prior to that. They have those charges now. Like I said, a judge now has to step in and hear from both the defense and the prosecution tomorrow. That'll happen at 9 a.m. at the Juvenile Detention Center there, where that 15-year-old is being held. And that will be to determine for the judge whether or not they'll proceed with charging this individual as an adult or as a juvenile.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for the update, Scott. Really do appreciate it. It's a lot
You're
of
welcome.
legalese to break down. Really glad we have you checking this stuff out and bringing us the news, because that's a lot to do while we're running
You're
a show
very
right
welcome.
here.
We'll keep
Also,
people updated across the street.
for the KVI audience, Scott does a great job at always keeping us updated with this stuff, and I want to give him kudos for that. He's been helping us out this week. We
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. As I mentioned, the head of the Seattle Police Officers Guild is going to come join us and tell us the stories of heroism and courage that have kind of been overshadowed by everything else in this case. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We've been talking about the shooting at the Bite of Seattle a lot. And the problem is we haven't been talking about what actually happened. Instead, we've been talking about the response to everything. We've been talking about the politicians. We haven't talked about the officers who saved lives and had the suspects down in seconds. Joining us now in studio to talk about some of those brave officers is the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, Kent Liu. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Ari.
Always a pleasure. Wish it was under better circumstances, but I like sharing stories of heroic police officers. So let's start with this. The shooting happens. I got the police report today, and immediately it says they ran to the scene. They were there. Very sparse details after that. What happened?
So some of the criticism has been, lack of security and things like that. Well, Bite of Seattle is meant to be kind of an open festival, right? But police are there, and we're there the whole time. Well, this incident happened kind of closer to our office, our staging area. So we were on top of this within seconds. Everything that I saw and witnessed, officers ran towards gunfire without hesitation, complete disregard for their own safety. Got in there, provided the aid that they could. We've had a lot of training in that, especially in recent years, and that was all incredibly successful. And it's disappointing that all of this gets overshadowed now because of a poor response from what I think is the mayor's office, kind of, pushing this press conference, late.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate because really what you had is a significant tragic incident. And really my heart to go out to those family members. I mean, this is a bigger problem, right, of juvenile crime. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough of the officers and my members who complete disregard for their own safety ran in there.
Now, as much as I want to jump up and down on politicians, let's do the officers first. Then we can jump up and down on politicians. So give us a little sense, because I'm pretty sure I walked through the crime scene, because after Bite of Seattle, the place was kind of opened up. Where exactly did this happen? How did this happen? And how did the officers get there so fast? Because I have a picture, which somebody sent me, which I am not posting to social media, of that 2-year-old kid on the ground and the officers trying to help him. And I'm not posting it, even though it makes the officers look good. There's a 2-year-old kid on the ground who's shot. Aside from the legal issues, just ain't right. So tell us what happened.
So some of that, I don't know all the specifics, but it seemed to happen right by the International Fountain.
Yeah.
I guess it would have been probably the southeast.
That's what I was looking at. There were some vendor booths over there, and that's where this happened.
I think what you're probably talking the southeast fountain to, I guess it would be the northwest corner of the Armory.
The back side. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like
sure,
between
sure.
those
Right
2
over there.
points.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not too far from our office, where SPD had a lot of people. So, like I said, the lack of security, I mean, there weren't, magnetometers or anything like that. I mean, that's not how this festival has, I think, ever been run.
Right.
The only one that really runs that way is Bumbershoot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, officers were on top of this within seconds. I saw one article that said it happened within minutes. No, it happened within seconds. By the time officers could run across the fountain lawn from Fisher Pavilion, if people are familiar, they already had somebody on the ground. And at that point, I think it was unclear to the officer if they were actually taking them into custody or rendering aid. Turns out they were taking that person into custody.
Yeah.
But in other words, that person was on the ground, neutralized within seconds.
Gotcha. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So the person who's in custody didn't appear injured or shot or anything like that. We'll know more after the hearing today. We'll have all the details on that. We don't need to do that right now. Plus, it's a minor, and there's things we don't know about that. But the suspects who were taken down, there's the one that got arrested. There's the one who's at large, possibly 2 who are at large. And then there's the dead suspect who's believed to be one of the suspects. Was that them shooting each other? Was that the police took that person down? Do we know the answers to that question yet?
The police were not involved in any shooting. I think that's safe to confirm. I don't think there's anything there. I mean, if we were involved in an officer-involved shooting, I think that would be out.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I really stay away from kind of getting the inside information, because then I got to be careful about what I know and don't know. So really, I get all my information essentially from the media sources as well. So, yeah, we were not involved. So whoever was shot was between
the gang members.
The gang members, right? Whatever alleged affiliation that is, between them. Officers
Gotcha.
did not fire around.
So the police officers get there. They're rendering aid immediately. They're rendering aid while they're waiting for the EMTs and crew to show up. So they're trained in that. How long was it until fire department, medics, everybody else got there?
Oh, minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a quick, fast response. Fire was great. Shout out to Seattle Fire Department. They were instrumental in that too. Right. So we just kind of have that immediate, right, going into the hot zone. They showed up prepared to go into what we call a warm zone.
Yeah.
Right. Where we don't know about existing threats in that moment. But they have some Kevlar and things like that allow that. So we usually stand by for security for them. They take the patients from us. They continue the aid or triage if needed. And then they, like I said, triage, so they'll evaluate. So we had somebody who was shot less severely, right? Fire calls out, and we got AMR for them. Fire might have probably transported some other people, things like that.
Gotcha.
It was a really well-coordinated effort where we took it immediately. Fire came in right after us. Yeah, no delays. As far as a critical incident, this was outstanding work by SPD and SFD.
And all the victims the victims who were injured have already been released from the hospital, which attests to the fact not how severe their injuries were, but how much worse this could have been, which is if the police hadn't gone there so fast, you could have had a 2-year-old kid bleed out. You could have had other people bleed out. And luckily, police got there right away. We're talking with Kent Liu, who's the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild. Is there one of those stories that's kind of inspirational that you guys will be telling other officers for generations, like this officer stepped in and did this? Is there something specific like that? You don't even have to name names if they don't want to be public, but is there a story, something like that kind of summarizes all?
There probably is. I'm not aware of all the actions that everybody took.
Yeah.
So I'll speak to the officers on the ground as a whole.
Yeah.
Their response was incredible. I can't emphasize that enough. For people attending events, public events, sometimes we get a little bit like, oh, why are you here? This is why we're here. In case something horrific like this is going to happen, right? Sometimes we are the insurance that you have that you don't want to need.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a perfect example of that.
I was at an event today. I will not say where yet. We're saving this for another time, but there was a security guard there. And shall we just say some people who don't agree with the way you and I think were there. And they were mad there's a security guard there who is watching over some very expensive stuff and everybody's safety. And I go, you're triggered by the dude in the corner who's not doing anything? Mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. We're talking with Kent Liu. So as we've both been discussing, this has been overshadowed by a lot of the politics. And I know the Seattle Police Officers Guild has a needle you have to thread, which is you got to get your contracts, so you got to be friends with the mayor who does that. You have a boss who's the boss of all your officers, and you got to deal with that. But these two people are at the center of all this with regards to the response. I saw the police report, and the police report basically says the police knew all this information beforehand. There's also a few other things, which is the word dignitaries is not something that I ever see the police use before. It sounds like there's a massive communications breakdown, and we take for granted that the police did everything perfectly. Everything was done perfectly, and because everything was done perfectly, there's nothing to nitpick there. So now everybody's looking at the politicians where everything was not done perfectly. Any thoughts you're allowed to say on that? Say on that?
That I don't know. I mean, there's some speculation there.
Yes.
But it is unfortunate that, SPD did so many things correct and right that there's just nothing to nitpick, like you said. Right. So now we get this distraction of this press conference or whatever happened there. And a lot of that, again, I wasn't privy to. I'm kind of learning about it after the fact. I don't understand the delay. I don't understand waiting for these people. It's just a very weird thing. And it just seems like, again, our media unit have protocols and procedures. They're competent in what they do.
Yeah.
It seems like, right, what it reeks of is that somebody else is controlling this.
Sure.
And I don't think we maybe know exactly who, but I think we've got lots of local media digging.
So not to get you into trouble, but I remember with the Boston Marathon bombing and other big events, the way it normally works is cop who's the supervisor on the scene will come out to the media and say, X amount of people are dead, X amount of people are injured, and we're looking at a guy. The next presser will be at 9 o'clock. The next presser will be at 10 o'clock. Is that standard operating procedure, something like that, where you get the information out that needs to go out, then you bring in the big wigs and everything like that?
I'm not as familiar with our policy regarding that, right?
Yeah.
I know media has that kind of structured. Just as another citizen who sometimes watches the news, I think, right, obviously I think we all understand that there's open and ongoing investigations and there's information that can't and shouldn't be shared.
Yes.
However, right, there's some smaller bits of information that I think you can feed people, right, to kind of satisfy some questions.
Sure.
And I think that the media is probably accepting of that, right? That I don't have much for you now. Here's what I do have.
Yes.
See you in an hour.
Yes.
Right?
Which we do all the time around here. So I think now that we're getting the insider look at this, I think that kind of shows the perspective issue around here and what we're dealing with now. Kent Liu, God bless you. God bless your officers,
Thank you.
because this could have been so much worse. It's bad enough that you have the dead people and the injured people, but this could have been so much worse. And I think to myself, if certain people had their way and defunded the police or abolished the police, what this would have been like. We now see a world where there wasn't security and police had to respond. Just before we let you go, one other thing is the cameras have been a big discussion. Now, not asking you to answer for that, not asking you to speak to that, because an investigation is still ongoing, but I was walking through Seattle Center today. There are no city cameras in Seattle Center because Seattle Center is kind of this weird public-private thing. So question is that are the businesses there cooperating with investigators as far as you know with the private cameras they have?
As far as I know,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how many cameras are actually there.
Gotcha.
Right? It is like you said, it's a civic center.
Yeah.
So it has different rules, right? So it is public City of Seattle property.
Yes.
But yeah, as far as the cameras, I'm not sure exactly what cameras are going to be located or found, again, other than some private cameras maybe around the outskirts.
Sure. Ken Liu, God bless you. God bless your officers. Thank you so much for coming in today to highlight the officers' response, which unfortunately has not been getting a lot of attention. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, get my voter's guide up at kvi.com. It's kvi.com if you need help with your ballots. And right now, we got a story for you, my friends, you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
I saw a video going around the other day, and it was being shared on X and other platforms by our very own Senator Patty Murray. And it shows ICE arresting an individual here in Washington. And Patty Murray is all mad about it. She's big mad about the mom in tennis shoes. On Thursday, ICE needlessly detained Eduardo Aguilera Esperanza, a local Seattle small business owner with no criminal history. Remember that. No criminal history. This is a man who is married to an American citizen with deep ties to our local community who is working hard to pursue a legal pathway to lawful permanent Okay. Right there. You gave away the game, Patty. So right there, you tried to make us think because he's married to somebody, he's a citizen, but he's not, is he? And he's not here legally, is he? For the federal government to waste its resources to forcefully detain and deport Eduardo and tear apart an American family, not all American, is plain sick. Our immigration enforcement should be focused on violent criminals and keeping Americans safe. Deporting hardworking people like Eduardo makes no one safer. It's just cruel and wrong. She also called on the Department of Homeland Security to return him to Washington. I demand that DHS return Eduardo to Washington State so that he may receive due process and have access to counsel. Flying Eduardo to Texas, away from lawyers to try and deport him, is fundamentally wrong and un-American. I hope others in Washington State will join me in calling for Eduardo's immediate return home so that the courts can fairly consider his case. So what do? You know, Democrats, you got to make this harder for me. You really got to make this harder for me. One email. Literally one email to my contact at ICE. And then I got a statement from an ICE spokesperson. According to ICE, Eduardo Aguilera Esperanza, 53, a citizen of Mexico, was arrested by ICE Seattle on July 23rd. The agency said he first entered the United States illegally through Calexico, California. Strike one. In 2002, he was granted voluntarily return to Mexico, which is like, dude, we'll let you go. Just come back the right way next time. That's what voluntary return is. ICE said he illegally re-entered the United States at an unknown date and location without inspection by an immigration official. Strike two, or dos. Maybe that's what we're going for here. Okay. Then ICE disputed Murray's assertion that Aguilera Esperanza has no criminal history. According to the agency, he was arrested in Dodge City, Kansas in 2005 for driving under the influence. 3 strikes. Bye-bye. No habla español. I don't speak Spanish. I failed French for 3 years because my father thought it would be more useful. Clearly, neither one of these are very useful to me. Okay. Hola, right? No, that's hello and goodbye. Whatever. Okay. Anywho, yeah. Do we really want a guy who snuck into this country twice? We were nice on him the first time, came back into the country, and then was busted for DUI? Really? This was so easily disprovable, Patty Murray. So easily disprovable. This wasn't even that challenging. You got to make it harder for me, lady. You really, really do. Up next, my friends, more updates on the shooting at Seattle Center and a whole bunch of palace intrigue. We might know who are the ones who are stopping that press conference and information for going out for the media. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Are we going back to bombing Iran? Sure seems so. Brandy Cruz is going to join us to tell us what happened at the Storm game last night, where one of the owners seemed to threaten some of the girls who were there. Is there going to be an apology? But before we get to any of that, my friends, information is flooding in about what happened this weekend at the Bite of Seattle, and we still don't know anything. It's incredible how so much information is coming in, and they're saying nothing. Typical politicians, by the way. All right, let's start with what we got this morning. I got a copy of the police report of the Bite of Seattle shooting. Now, you remember that the big controversy is that Seattle officials and Washington officials waited 5 hours before releasing any information. The Seattle Police Department said they were being told they couldn't release anything because they were waiting for dignitaries. As we discussed yesterday, that term is not one that the police use. The police usually say, waiting on the governor, waiting on the mayor, waiting on VIPs. VIPs is a word they use, not dignitaries. Right away, something sounded fishy about that. So are you delaying the press conference because you're waiting for Bob Ferguson to get there? Because you're waiting for Pramila Jayapal to get there? In the meantime, they knew there was a suspect on the loose. We didn't know that. Now that you have that information, you want to be more mad? Here's what was in the police report. SPD knew immediately after the 6 p.m. shooting that one of the deceased people was one of the shooters. They also knew one other unknown suspect was at large. We found out today, according to the documents that the AP managed to get a hold of, that there are bullets from 4 guns in the victims, but they only found 2 guns. We know that yesterday, you had Sean Barnes and Katie Wilson at their press conference. They admitted that there might be a second suspect. So let's go through. That's 4 people shooting at each other, possibly. You've got the suspect who's in custody who was charged today. You've got a suspect who's dead. You've got the suspect we knew about who fled, and you might have a second one out there. So you wait 5 hours before telling us there's even one suspect. You still haven't given us a description of anybody. You guys do have body camera footage, right? Why isn't that being released? They did not share there was a suspect on the loose until 5 hours later, which means this guy could have been in Canada by then. They also did not share that one of the victims was actually the shooters until the following day, but they knew it that night. They knew it right after it happened. Now, under former Mayor Bruce Harrell, SPD Communications was consolidated under the mayor's office. There are now reports that Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson's office delayed a press conference that SPD was planning to hold at 7:45 because of, wait for it, dignitaries. That's according to Hannah Kim over at Fox 13. So Katie Wilson delayed the press conference. As we've said before, how do these things normally work? Cop comes out. Senior officer on the scene comes out. And the senior officer goes, okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a shooting. Here's what we know so far. X amount of people are dead. X amount of people are injured. We'll get you more information. We don't have all of it. There's going to be a follow-up presser at 8 o'clock. Okay, cool. That never happened. Instead, you had one of these guys come out and said, yeah, we're going to have that press conference at 9:45. 3 hours and 45 minutes after the incident. And when confronted about that, the cop said, Then we find out Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes isn't in town because the understudy is coming out to fill in for him, the acting police chief. And I said there's only one reason he's going to be acting chief as opposed to the regular chief, because Barnes is out of town. Then we find out Barnes don't live here at all. Barnes doesn't even live in the city. He doesn't live in the state. He lives in Chicago. But he's got an apartment he uses here, and he was at some event in Dallas, but this is the second time he's been out of town. So I send a request to Bob Ferguson's office, and I say, hey, can you give me his schedule? Bob Ferguson's office has not responded to a single email I have ever sent them, a single request I have ever sent them in the almost 2 years he's been governor for. Not one. This one they replied to? Oh, he was here, ready to go. He was there, ready to go. Yeah. And here's his timeline. He was at his daughter's game. He was in Seattle by 9. He was ready to go. We don't know why it was delayed. That's very nice. And then I get another email today. And this was the oddest one I've gotten in a while. This is from Governor Bob Ferguson's press secretary. Hey, Ari. What? It's not a bulk email. We continue to get some questions about the timeline. I know you're interested, so I want to share this with you as well. In an emergency, the lead law enforcement agency is responsible for sharing information with the public regarding their active investigation. I want to be very clear. Our office had no involvement in what was being communicated to the public by the Seattle Police Department and assumed that timely communication was happening. Okay, one part of that is true, one part of that is false. Here's the thing. The part that's true is, yes, the senior law enforcement agency is usually in charge of the response. But you assume timely communication. Did you not think to yourselves, why haven't they done a presser yet? Why haven't they done a presser yet? Why haven't we seen anything on social media yet? You posted your own statement on social media, so somebody was checking it. Consequently, the discussion about when to hold an event involving elected officials was separate from what was being shared by law enforcement for breaking news and public safety purposes. And any tragedy like this is expected that elected officials will communicate to the public at the appropriate time about their coordinated efforts, express condolences, and thank responders. That's true. But why did you wait on that? Why did you wait on that? Usually, cop comes out, then politicians come out the next press conference. Why'd you wait? The governor and the mayor were in communication after the governor received news of the shooting shortly after 7 p.m. You think a discussion of how to tell people wasn't part of that conversation? The governor organized a Zoom call at 8 p.m. Governor organized a Zoom call at 8 p.m., which he participated in while he was driving south to Seattle. That call included a number of individuals, including the Washington State Patrol, Congresswoman Jayapal, and a representative from the mayor's office. You think they weren't discussing right then and there? You think they were discussing right there that whether or not to talk to the media? You think they weren't discussing it? They are trying to put the blame on Katie Wilson. She deserves it, but so does Bob Ferguson. So does Pramila Jayapal. So does everybody. The governor then proceeded to a location 10 minutes from Seattle Center. He arrived there shortly before 9 p.m. The governor was at that location. We participated in a conference call with city officials. You think nobody said, hey, guys, it's been 3 hours and we haven't told the public anything? He said it was arranged by the mayor's office. You think that discussion wasn't happening in that moment? You think so? Of course it was. Of course it was. So now Katie Wilson is under the gun. Why? Center Square filed a public disclosure request for all the texts and emails. Now, Bob Ferguson doesn't get back to them either. They're deemed as too right-wing. But they sent them one solitary text. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson initially told Governor Bob Ferguson a briefing might be held the evening of the Bite of Seattle shooting, but her office sent no subsequent text confirming it. Questions have persisted over why public briefing did not begin until more than 4 hours after the July 26 shooting, with some sources claiming it was delayed to accommodate elected officials. According to text messages obtained through public records request filed Monday. Wait a second. It's Wednesday. You got a PDR back in 2 days? That doesn't happen unless they want you to see something. This has happened with me before, by the way. When somebody wants me to see something, I get that PR back like grease lighting. Bob Ferguson's office, weeks, months, years until you see something. Instead, this text message got sent to them. Just this one single solitary text message got sent to the Center Square, which is, I hope they spread this to everybody. I hope they do. I hope they do. We're here. You have Katie Wilson contacted Ferguson on his cell phone at 7:41 p.m. Sunday night, say we are pulling together a conference call now, likely a press conference later. Ferguson texted back, I could be there by 9 p.m. There are no further text messages sent to or from either Wilson or Ferguson. Do you think somebody picked up the phone and called? Ferguson is trying to be like, I did my thing. Wasn't me. That's what Ferguson's trying to do here. Now, Katie Wilson's on the hook for it because they're trying to make it look like, hey, she was in charge of the police. She was in charge of the response. Now, this is where things get fun because we have some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on The Ari Hoffman Show.
Our friends from the newsroom just came in and handed me a little Post-it. And they said, check ComoNews.com right now. What's on ComoNews.com? Seattle Police Chief cancels interview. Acknowledges frequent travel outside the city. The guy who lives in Chicago is acknowledging he travels outside the city frequently. Kevin, do you know what PDR I filed just 2 days ago? Yesterday when we got all this? I filed a PDR that said I would like all his travel logs and who's paying for it. Gee, wonder why all of a sudden he is now saying that he's canceling his appearances. Sean Barnes is supposed to be at a vigil at 6:30 tonight in Seattle Center for the victims. So he's canceling his appearances. What does that normally mean to you guys? What does that normally mean? What does that mean? Oh, they're circling the wagons. Or somebody's about to be fired. Katie Wilson needs a fall guy. Sean Barnes is the guy who's been traveling out of town. He doesn't actually live here. Oh, and Jonathan Cho and I have been digging into a few other things about Sean Barnes, like his voting records, like his tax returns. Yeah, it's really easy what you can find online these days. I mean, really, you can find incredible things. And I'll just tell you, Jonathan Cho and I got stories for about a week and a half now on just Sean Barnes about this. He is the easy fall guy. That way, Katie Wilson can blame him. Now, before all of you get excited about Sean Barnes getting fired, which looks like is about to happen, before you get excited about that, who's in charge of picking his replacement? Katie Wilson. And it's going to be somebody worse. It's going to be somebody worse. According to Como News, Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes canceled a planned interview with Como News on Wednesday about 30 minutes before he was scheduled to answer questions about the deadly Seattle Center shooting and the amount of time he has spent outside the city. Barnes has agreed Wednesday morning to discuss the department's response to Sunday's shooting, communication failures that followed, and his travel schedule instead of the interview. His office provided portions of his calendar documenting his movements from late March through the end of July. Hey, why'd you give it to them? Why didn't you give it to us? Why aren't they giving that to us? We asked for the exact same thing. The records appear to show Barnes was out of office and outside Seattle nearly a dozen times during those 4 months. So everybody who goes, oh, he's entitled to a vacation with his family. No, dude doesn't live here. Dude isn't here, including 7 work-related conferences and 4 trips to Chicago. I see what's happening here. So Sean Barnes was getting upset at that reporter from the Emerald because he was being called out on the fact he wasn't here, and I think Sean Barnes was lying a little bit, huh?
I have been here working as hard as I can for this city from the day I got here. Do you got that?
But there are reports, that you are not in town often.
Their reports are wrong. Do you understand?
Let's go, man. Let's go.
You understand?
So when
I work. Let's go. Thank you.
Had to be pulled away. Then, when he got asked this at a press conference yesterday about the Chicago thing, doesn't sound like he was telling the truth either.
Do you want to just squash the discourse about, you not being in town enough?
Yeah, part of being a leader is being here, being visible, and being present. Part of being a leader in a major city is that sometimes I have obligations, and I wanted to be at the conference to support one of our community members who was getting an award, and one of our community service officers that was also getting an award from the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
How often do you travel to Chicago? Your wife and kids still live there. I'd like to know how often on weekends you travel there and who's paying for that.
Certainly, I don't travel as often as I would like to. I think any reports that I'm gone every weekend are grossly misstated. I don't have that kind of money. I'm here in Seattle. I love the neighborhood that I live in. I love my community. They love me.
Oh, be quiet. Shut up. Shut up. This is all blown wide open. You love your community. I don't want to dox his address, but I know his building. There's no community in that building.
I was going to say it would be great if it was like, what community do you live in, sir? What neighborhood is it? It's called the cool neighborhood.
The cool neighborhood. Wait,
It's
Kevin. Kevin, do you need a ride to the stadium tonight?
Pinehurst?
Are the Mariners playing tonight? Are you going to the game?
I don't think they are. Well, I don't think they're in town. But if they were in town, yes, I would like a ride.
Well, so behind the scenes here, Kevin likes to go to Mariners games, and when he's going that direction, I'm happy to take him down there because it's on my way home. So today, you know where I want to go? I want to go to Sean Barnes' building, and I just want to stand outside, and I want to go, hi, excuse me, do you know Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes? I'm not going to say, does he live in the building? That's kind of doxing him, right? I'll be like, do you know Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes? Is he part of your community? I kind of just want to do that, right? Is that too much? Is that too much?
That's probably too much.
Okay, so there's a vigil tonight, which he's supposed to be at. And I want to go and ask him questions after the vigil. After the vigil. I don't want to, like, crash a funeral type thing. It's at Seattle Center. It's a public one. It's not like for, it's not like for the families or whatever. And I want to go and confront Barnes. Is that too much? Kevin's getting kind of squishy. Kevin's like, I don't know, Hoffman. I don't know. You may have crossed your limit this time, Hoffman. I don't know about that.
We're getting enough out there. Do you really need to do that? I mean,
well, here's the thing, Kevin. I'm going now, and you know why I'm going? If he's not there, he's about to be fired because he was supposed to be there tonight. If he cancels the interview with Como and then he cancels a public appearance, dude's about to be fired. There's no way around that. That is likely what is about to happen.
well, he's going to miss his neighborhood that he loves so much.
Yes. Oh, wait a second. This is good because now he can get caught up on his taxes because now he won't have to. Oh, did I say that? Oh, no. Did I say that out loud? Did I say that out loud now because he doesn't have to pay for the apartment in the swanky building right near Lumen Field? Uh-huh. Just making sure. There's like 6 of them. Don't worry. I'm not giving out his address. There's like 6 or 7 buildings down there. Okay. Good. Now we'll have some. Oh, wait. He won't have a job with the police department, so he won't be getting that $374,000 a year salary. Uh-huh. I think Sean Barnes is about to be gone. I really, really do. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, the Fauci is in the hot seat. Anthony Fauci pled the Fifth 111 times. So where do we go from here? Is he ever going to see the inside of a prison? We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the Fauci, was in the hot seat today in front of a Senate committee investigating him, COVID, his diary, where he talks about all the celebrities he's friend with. By the way, this thing is so detailed. I kind of wonder when he had the time to actually do, the doctoring thing. Because between all his TV appearances and between Dear Diary, by the way, this doesn't seem like Doogie Howser diary. It's not like the little typing. It's not Carrie Bradshaw diary kind of thing. No, none of that. It seems handwritten because there's a whole lot of things they couldn't really read because of his handwriting in this book. But now that it's been published, we see what an egomaniacal, crazy man he actually was, contradicting himself, impressed with himself, high on his own supply, you might actually say. Well, there was a section about Washington in this thing. From the Fauci diary, Governor Inslee of Washington State called me even though the VP was on his way to visit the governor, and he asked me my opinion about mitigation, i.e., should they start it? I told him definitely yes. What is mitigation? Closing down everything. So Fauci's the one who told Inslee to do it. Why was the VP coming here? You remember that famous picture? You've got Inslee wearing a mask and Pence wearing a mask, and they're on the tarmac at SeaTac because Pence has brought with him a cargo plane filled with medical supplies because Washington had the first cases of corona, and they had the deaths in the nursing homes, and they're like, we're here to save you. Jay Inslee, according to Dr. Fauci, he said that he trusts me and nobody else in the administration. I also answered a number of questions from him and his staff. So, one of the people who's the reasons that Jay Inslee had emergency powers for 975 days, Anthony Fauci. One of the reasons all those businesses and schools, churches, synagogues, everything was closed, Anthony Fauci. According to him, he told Governor Inslee of Washington. Can you imagine that phone call? Dr. Fauci, there's some people dying in the nursing homes, and I'm not going to say I sent them there, but I sent them there because the document hasn't been revealed yet, but I sent them there. And we got to know what to do. What do we do? I mean, we know this thing isn't deadly to kids, and it's affecting the elderly, so what should we do? I think you should shut everything down immediately. Immediately. 6 feet social distancing, and what else should we do? I know. We'll call it 2 weeks to stop the spread, flatten the curve. Let's use both. Let's use both of them. Let's do all that. Stay home, stay healthy, shut down the schools. Okay. You're the doc. That's what the conversation was. That was basically it, right? That was it. And Jay Inslee had emergency powers for 975 days. Is he ever going to be held accountable for any of this? No, instead he's just mad that Rand Paul released his diary. So Dr. Fauci took the fifth over 111 times today. But before that, he did give an opening statement.
Over 200 times over those 38 years. During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times for hearings in the Senate and the House, usually under oath, and sat for several days-long transcribed sworn interviews, answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing.
Yeah, but you contradicted yourself on late-night TV appearances and then contradicted yourselves again in the morning shows. I guess, if you never tell a lie, you never have to remember the truth. Isn't that what it is? But Fauci couldn't remember what he told anybody. He's doing so many interviews for InStyle magazine and Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and everybody else.
However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me.
Dude, I don't care anymore. It's all in your own little dear diary. All in your own little dear diary. So, what kind of questions did he answer? It got to the point where Josh Hawley called him out for not answering anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one.
That's pretty much how the hearing went. That's how the hearing went. That was it. That was it. So, Senator Marino said what a lot of us were thinking. He opened with this.
It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace.
I got to reach out to that dude. I am reaching out to him. I want an interview with that dude. We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Hank and Squim. Hank, what's going on?
Hey, not much, Ari. I got a couple things to say here. One about yesterday you made the comment, how many people is it going to take to get killed for them to straighten the crap up?
You mean the stuff in Seattle, not COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, I don't think it's going to straighten up because we have so many American-hating people moving to all of our major cities and, like, say, Chicago and L.A., and these leaders, they couldn't run a lemonade stand. They cater to the people that only want the free things, so they want to be on the camera and sound like heroes to all these people that don't know crap about how society is supposed to function. They have no civics or nothing like that. And so I think a lot of our major cities, they're just not going to recover. Look how long crap's been going on in Chicago, and they're not voting better in Chicago. They're not voting better in L.A. They keep.
Well, hang on a second. Actually, you're connecting my two stories for me, Hank. You really are. I did a whole analysis earlier today that's not done yet. I'll have it on the show tomorrow about different states' responses to COVID and where people moved. And what's fascinating to me is one of the reasons that people aren't waking up is because conservatives are fleeing the blue cities, basically picking up their ball and going home. And because they're picking up their ball and going to free America, there's less and less of them to vote for. I will remind you of this, which is Lee Zeldin would be governor of New York if not for COVID, because what happened was 400,000 New Yorkers moved to Florida during COVID. Guess how many votes Lee Zeldin lost by?
400?
Well, it was basically about the amount of people that left. It would have been a much closer election. Much closer election. Make it quick, Hank. I got a couple other calls I got to get to before the break.
He's got that pardon, but does he have an international pardon? Because he is doing that Wuhan virus deal in China, and he affected the whole world.
That's a good. I like that. Let's take him to the Hague. Let's do that. Appreciate the call, Hank. Appreciate you being part of the show. We go back to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, make it quick, buddy. What's going on?
Ari, the only person that's taken the fifth more than Dr. Fauci would be Kamala Harris.
Joe Biden can't remember to say I've taken the fifth, right? Oh, Ted, I needed that today. You're the man. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, Brandy Cruz was in the stadium last night when one of the owners of the Storm went up to a bunch of teenage girls to threaten them. We'll tell you what happened. She's going to join us next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, last night I had the opportunity to go to a Seattle Storm game for the first time ever, and I'm really glad I didn't give them my money because now finding out the behavior of the owners and others and their treatment of the girls who are just fighting to compete in girls' sports without boys apparently was beyond reprehensible. Somebody who was inside the stadium is our friend Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided podcast, which you should subscribe to right now for the low, low price of a cup of coffee a month. That's it. So you should subscribe to it so you get all this information. Brandy, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, and thank you for showing up at the rally. It really means a lot also when men show up for these girls and just to say like, hey, we're with you too. This isn't just a fight for women and girls. This is a common sense fight that men should be involved in as well. So it meant a lot that you were there yesterday.
I appreciate that, but it felt like I wasn't doing the hard work. A teenage girl should not have to go through any of this. I think of my own daughter, if she, God forbid, has to go through any of this. And I think these teenage girls should not be doing this alone. And they have their parents and they have their family friends and they have you and me and a few others. But the rally was a little sparsely attended. It's 5 o'clock on a weekday. I understand that. I wanted more people there. But this is a girl on her summer break. She's on a vacation with her family, and they show up and they have to do this because, unfortunately, so many other people aren't stepping up. And, in fact, they're being demonized for it.
Yeah, just outrageous. Yeah, Women Are Real had this idea to just put on like a pro Sophie Cunningham rally, which we, attended as well. And just like a very kind, pleasant, no sort of, anti-trans rhetoric, just, hey, thanks, Sophie Cunningham, for standing up for these young girls. And then the idea was to go into the game for those of us that had tickets. And we had tried hard and spent a lot of money in the days leading up to the game to get some of the female athletes front row seats. To send a message, yes, they were in their XXXY shirts, no doubt. That was intended to send a message so that they were very visible. But they were also very excited to see particularly Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark play. And so for them to have that opportunity, some of the best seats in the stadium, and then to be treated the way they were was rage-inducing.
Okay, so they show up, they're sitting courtside. What happens after that? Because I've seen some reports in the media. You told me a couple of them were inaccurate. What exactly happened inside the stadium itself?
Yeah, so I was with the girls because their parents were sitting elsewhere. And so I was sort of down underneath the front row, underneath the hoop on the Storm side. I had 3 girls with me, and then the 2 girls who have been all over the news were sort of mid-court between the 2 team benches. One of them you'll be familiar with, Annalie Wilson. She lost a state track title to a biological boy. She's been on, a variety of news shows. And so I would say things were going kind of as expected. I was there basically to watch the girls and make sure that, nothing happened to them and that they weren't harassed and stuff. And right away, Annalie and her friend ended up sitting next to a person with a "No hate in these United States" sign, a sign that said that. So I was like, gosh, I hope that person's not a problem. And they were sort of, saying little things and sniping at the girls. And the girls told me about it like, hey, we might call security, but for now we're fine. So, and then the girls I was with in game breaks, they were taking pictures, standing up to take pictures, and they'd get booed relentlessly by these like 60-something white women a few rows behind us, which was just insane. And I turned around and I said, they're teenage girls. Like, they're just having fun at a game. All they have on is this t-shirt. How are you so unhinged? So then at halftime, I look over and I see Annalie Wilson in tears. And this is someone who is so excited to come to this game, so excited to be sitting front row, seeing Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark, and I see her at halftime in tears. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, my mama berry, I'm not even a mom, but my instincts kicked in. I was like, I'm ready to throw fisticuffs. What's going on? So I go over there and she says that some older woman came up to them, said, you are effing insane. How dare you come into this place and pull this, you know what? Said, I hope God forgives you or your God forgives you for what you're doing and all this stuff. And so, and left Annalie in tears. So I, got a security guard. I told the security guard what happened. And by this time, this woman had walked away. And the security guard's like, if you see this woman and you can pick her out, let us know. Because that's against the WNBA code of conduct for any fan, right? And all of a sudden, the game restarts and Annalie spotted the woman. She was sitting directly across from her in the front row next to Sue Bird. She's like, that's the woman that came over. And so I immediately go up to security and I said, I found this woman, and I pointed her out. I said, she's the older woman to the left of Sue Bird. And security goes, oh, that's the co-owner of the team. And so she's actually married to one of the primary owners of the team. Her name is Celeste Keaton, and she's an older woman, walking with a cane. And I said to security, I said, okay, basically, so what? Any other fan, if they swore at and cussed out a 16-year-old girl, they would be ejected from the stadium. And so they were kind of like, well, the best thing to do is probably just to write a letter to the team or something about what happened. And I'm like, you mean we can't do something right now? I'm like, I'm expecting them to be like, no, rules are rules. The co-owner of the team doesn't get special treatment just because she's here and sit next to Sue Bird. And so I guess naive me expected them to go over there and say something to her. Of course they didn't, and now I'm like, well, her face is getting plastered everywhere, but just an outrageous. And then of course, after the game was over, I think the fans who hated our shirts got a little more emboldened. There was a little shouting going on, and these two women tried to trip a 15-year-old girl we were with who was wearing a shirt and then laughed. And I mean, these are grown women. So just a really outrageous display. And they had some of the players on the Storm team were giving the girls thumbs down, and wild.
There's so much to unpack there. And we're talking with Brandy Cruz, who was at the Storm game last night. So let me make sure I got this right. You have players on the Storm who are giving the thumbs down to people who paid money to watch them. You have the co-owner of the team who is yelling at somebody who paid money to watch them. You have Sue Bird, who's supposed to be a role model, who could have done something classy and walked over and said, girls, I disagree with you, but I appreciate you standing up for what you're doing. And instead, she watches the team owner's wife or whoever that is walk over and berate these girls. You have security unwilling to do anything about it. And this team wants our money. I mean, if this was my daughter, if this was my kid, I would call for a full boycott of the WNBA. But given how few people usually go to their games, unless Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark are going, I'm not sure we even need to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the stadium was packed, but it's not because the Storm, which just lost its 7th game in a row, was playing. Not that they haven't been good in the past, but, the seats that Annalie and her friend were sitting in, which were bought by a generous donor, were $1,300 apiece. That wasn't because it's a Storm game. That was because Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were there and the Fever were there. And so, and when they were introduced, they were booed beyond a normal booing thing for an opposing. Like, at a sporting event, you're booing the opposing team. That just sort of happens. And there was some of that, but Sophie Cunningham came out, and because of her comments on, protecting girls' sports, I felt like 95% of the stadium booed her. And then she dropped 3 3-pointers in a matter of minutes, and I was like, good for you. But yeah, it's outrageous. It's like they want to, they want the WNBA to fail. I mean, what they're doing is what you do to a business if you didn't want it to succeed. And not a single one of those woke, virtue signaling lunatics would be happy if men were playing in the league. Not one of those Storm players who are given a thumbs down to the girls who want to protect girls' sports would be happy if they lost their spot on the team to a man, or if the Fever had a man on their team. And the co-owner wouldn't be happy either if the Fever had a man and they lost miserably. And so it's just virtue signaling. Not one of us, went and shouted at someone holding a No Hate in Washington State sign, or tried to trip them, or tried to, curse them out. It is really a mind virus, and it was stunning to see. And I think Celeste Keaton owes Annalie Wilson an apology, and she should get the punishment that any other fan would have gotten if they behaved like that at a game.
Well, we reached out to the Storm, shock. We haven't heard back from them yet. There was a generic statement that was circling to some of the woke media that's out there. I did also reach out to some of these woke media members last night directly. And I said, would you mind telling me what was anti-trans about the protest, because I was there and I don't know what you're talking about. And none of them have replied, which shows what cowards they are. And then I'll just leave you with this, Brandy, is like, my daughter's coming back from where she's been for the summer. She had a great time. She was hanging out with her friends. And I mentioned that I was going to this game last night when I spoke to her last night. And she said, can you get me a Sophie Cunningham jersey? She said that to me, but I don't want to spend the money on the WNBA, but I kind of want to support Sophie Cunningham, but I don't want to spend the money on the WNBA. And my daughter has never asked to go to a Storm game before in her life. She's never shown any interest. It looks like the Storm and the WNBA are jeopardizing an opportunity they have to actually get more fans for this, because no way in hell I'm going to let her go now.
Yeah, and I will say there were fans that were around us that were lovely. I mean, there's a great couple next to us. They were Storm fans. They were kind of mortified that people were booing at us. And so not every fan was horrible. And I even had a conversation with these people who were totally like, oh, yeah, well, I don't want boys playing against girls. That's sort of common sense. And the other thing I'll say is they are tremendous athletes. I mean, being there on the floor, watching some of these women play basketball, it was awesome. I would totally go and watch it again, but not if it means padding the pockets of a team like the Storm that are on the wrong side of history.
Yep, I feel the exact same way. Brandy Cruz, God bless you for what you're doing and taking those girls out there and getting them the seats and everything you did with the rally. I mean, we need more of this kind of stuff, and I'm glad you're out there doing it. The least I could do is walk the 3 blocks from my studio over to come support you guys, but God bless you for what you're doing, and everybody should go right now, sign up for the Undivided podcast. Make sure she's worth the $5 a month, okay? Sign up for the podcast, and you'll get some of the best news in Washington outside of my show, of course. Brandy Cruz from Undivided, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, friend.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss, including some good news. Put a smile on your face after all that. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Just a reminder, everybody, by the way, from 6 to 7 o'clock, we have the Ari Hoffman Show reloaded. So if you missed parts of the show, it's all from today. It's all fresh content, just ran a little bit earlier. So if you need a little extra daily dose of the Ari Hoffman Show, that's from 6 to 7 o'clock. Thanks to our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns for sponsoring the Ari Hoffman Show reloaded. I do like some of your texts here, guys. When we were talking about Fauci pleading the fifth, this one here from Richard. Pelosi has taken the fifth more than anyone else if you consider the fifth is a liquid. But very good. In fact, right here, the 253 had a similar joke. Ari, every time I hear Kamala talk, it doesn't sound like she's taking the fifth. It sounds like she just got done drinking one. All right, very, very good. Mike says 2 weeks to flatten the economy. I shouldn't be laughing about that. I shouldn't be laughing about that, but that's what it is. Okay. All right. Actual good news. This one here from the Good News Network. From Big Sky Country comes a rescue story so cliche that even Hollywood scriptwriters would pass it over. A 14-year-old obsessed with roping cattle rescued a man who'd fallen into the river Indiana Jones style, catching him around the neck and arm with a lasso. Indiana Jones doesn't use a lasso, you fools. He uses a whip. Why can't you talk about like city slickers or something? What are you talking about here? Jory Thomas is spending 4th of July weekend at his grandparents' house along the Yellowstone River near Gray Cliff in Sweetgrass County when he heard someone screaming for help. 4 people in a raft, a paddleboard, had struck a bridge pier and fallen in. 3 managed to get to shore, but a 4th clung helplessly to a cooler, silently and swiftly moving downriver. Thomas didn't think twice. He later admitted he emptied his pockets, took out his lariat, and waded out up to his chest. What he planned was straight out of a Western movie. That year, the ranch kid Thomas had become fixated with roping or catching cow calves with a lasso. So what did he do? Convincing the man to let go of the cooler, Thomas got him around the arm and neck on his first try. While a bystander on the scene rushed to help the young man reel him in. Thomas's father is a veteran volunteer firefighter, said he called 911 as soon as he heard the screaming. Police records show that from the time of the call, it just took 3 minutes for sheriff's deputies to arrive on the scene. But by then, there was hardly anything to see because Jory had lassoed the victim and brought him in safely. And the kid, he's being interviewed by the news. He's got one of those real aw shucks kind of, I'm just helping out, sir, just helping out. We need more of that kind of stuff. This one here, Sweetgrass County Sheriff Alan Ronenberg said, "My opinion, Jory saved the individual's life 100%. Had Jory not acted, I believe the chances of this individual not making it to shore were very slim. That's because, as Thomas's father put it, the swift current on that section of the Yellowstone River quickly leads to rapids, log jams, and other obstacles that can easily claim the life of anyone floating through it." Yellowstone River? Why are we talking about Yellowstone? Aren't those a bunch of cowboys? Oh, they're not those kind of cowboys. That's why we're not mentioning them. You have to send a note to the Good News Network about the Indiana Jones reference. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. Reloaded is up next, but we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.